Okay, so this training session will be recorded and made available to staff and students. Your comments, questions, both verbal and text-based, and likenesses if using a webcam may be included in the recording as well. So what we're going to look at today is affordable software alternatives. So Cardiff Met staff and students have access to Microsoft Office, Adobe Creative Suite and other software. But after graduation, or if staff members move on to employment elsewhere, getting access to that software can, in some instances, be quite costly, especially because a lot of software firms nowadays have moved to a constant sort of monthly subscription model rather than a one-off purchase. So with that in mind, this session is going to look at what affordable alternatives exist for a lot of the software that Cardiff Met does allow at the moment. So let's have a look first of all at alternatives to Microsoft Office. So the most obvious free alternative to most of the Office suite at the moment would be Google's suite of programs. So you've got Google Docs, Google Sheets, and Google Slides. Those are the three main ones. So Google Docs is the equivalent of Word, Sheets is the equivalent of Excel, and Slides is the equivalent of PowerPoint. So they all offer a lot of the same features as Word, Excel, and PowerPoint, but you will need to sign up for a Gmail account to properly access these programs. But that is, of course, free to do so. This also will give you some storage space as well via a Google Drive, which is similar to the OneDrive that we use in Cardiff Met. And the Google software also allows you to open Microsoft format files and export files back out to Microsoft compatible formats as well. So there's a lot of cross compatibility, which of course is very useful. Google also offer Google Forms, which is an alternative to the Microsoft Forms as well. So there's a lot of kind of crossover in terms of the features and how you can use those things. Another Office alternative, if you don't want to use Google's version, is SoftMaker's Free Office. So Free Office has Text Maker, Plan Maker, and Presentations. So Free Office is the version. Free Office is the version of. Oh, sorry. Again, just mixed up there. Text Maker is the version of Word. Plan Maker is the version of Excel, and Presentations is PowerPoint. So again, these follow a lot of the same features as the Microsoft Office style. They're very much cross-compatible, so you can open up Microsoft documents within Free Office, and you can export out of Free Office into Microsoft compatible versions as well. And what's quite nice about the Free Office version is that it does try to mimic a lot of the general kind of user interface of Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. So there's a lot of crossover in terms of how they're set up. So if you're familiar with one, it's going to be quite simple to kind of like transfer those skills to the other software as well. So those are some good Office alternatives. The next thing we look at is alternatives to the Adobe Creative Suite. And specifically, we're going to look at alternatives to Photoshop and Illustrator, because those are the two big programs associated there with that suite. So in terms of an alternative to Photoshop, Photopea is a browser-based free alternative, and it looks a lot like Photoshop's interface, and it has a lot of the same features there. So if you are already familiar with Photoshop, this is a really kind of good program to get, because it'll be pretty much the same general setup there. And as I say, that's all browser-based. So you can find that at www.photopea.com, and I'll pop a link to that in the chat in a few moments. So another alternative to Photoshop is the unfortunately named GIMP, which stands for GNU Image Manipulation Program. So that one you can access via Cardiff Met right now anyway. It's available via Apps Anywhere, and but also it's available via www.gimp.org, and that can be downloaded for PC and Mac and other like mobile platforms as well. Again, it's a really good alternative to Photoshop. It's been around for years. There's a lot of similarities there. A couple of differences, but overall, if you know Photoshop, you'll be able to get to grips with that really sort of really effectively. Another affordable alternative, bearing in mind that this one isn't free like the others, but it's still very much worth checking out, is Clip Studio Paint. So Clip Studio Paint is not exactly free, but if you do pay for the one-time purchase, which is usually between £20 to £50, but there's always sales on the Clip Studio website. You can get a lot of support for just that one-time purchase, and it does a lot of the same things that Photoshop does. Interface looks very similar. It's a little different in spots in terms of how things work, but overall, if you know Photoshop, you'll be able to pick this up very quickly there. And of course, the advantage, of course, being that it's not tied to a subscription model again. So again, very affordable for a one-time purchase. Clip Studio is more geared for illustration rather than full-on image manipulation. So if you are looking to do photograph adjustments or any kind of like photograph manipulation, you're probably better off using the other two alternatives. But if you're just looking to illustrate or use, just draw or paint, that's an excellent program for it. And then in terms of an alternative to Illustrator for more vector-based items, you've got Inkscape. So Inkscape is another free alternative. So this one is, of course, to Illustrator. But the only thing with Inkscape is you'll find that the performance of it can vary depending on your machine and your operating system. So there can be some variations with that one there. But overall, Inkscape is a really good vector-based alternative to Illustrator. Features a lot of the same interface, a lot of the same kind of tools and skills. So as long as you're familiar with how Illustrator works, a lot of those skills will be transferable across there to Inkscape. And again, I'll put the link to all of these in the chat in just a few moments there. So that pretty much covers all the alternatives we've got for Microsoft Office and for Adobe Creative Cloud. So before I go ahead and take any questions, I'll go ahead and stop the recording here. And as I'm doing that, does anybody have any questions?